I'll solve the summary question now. This summary question is entirely visible to you. There is a paragraph this is the paragraph whose summary is to be chosen from these four options A, B, C, D. Okay. You should try this question on your own. You can pause this video and you can try this question as long as you want, and then you can you watch the explanation given by me. Now, I assume that you have tried this question on your own. I'll start giving the explanation. Now, this paragraph looks big. It appears to be difficult, but it is actually very easy. You just have to locate where the main idea is given. When you solve the summary question, you should focus on the main ideas, leaving out the subordinate or supporting ideas. Now, here the main idea actually lies here in these two lines up to here, from the word yet to this aesthetic standard. Now, how did I come to know this? I have come to know this because of this important word yet. Whenever you have words such as yet, however, but, still, nevertheless, even then, you should always make sure, you should always assume that the main idea lies after these words, after yet, after but, after however, etc. Okay, now, so what is written after yet? Critics fetishize the styles of studio era movies and take them for an enduring and immutable aesthetic standard, as if, etc., etc. Now, as if means imaginary, right? Whenever you say as though, as if, it is conditional. If itself suggests that it is something imaginary or conditional. Okay, so I don't have to read this part at all. I can even skip completely because the author is, comparing this with some conception. So I don't have to worry about this part. I will just focus on this particular part. Yet critics, now critics, you know that even you have to read this particular part, but you should focus on this particular statement. Now you can here see that the author is talking about movies made movies studio era movies made in a particular era. And critics means those who watch the movies and write reviews. You must have seen in the newspaper, etc. They say that this movie is bad, this movie is good. जो फिल्म की समीक्षा करते हैं, reviewers of movies. So what reviewers talk about these movies? They fetishize the styles of studio era movies. Now let us forget this particular part for a moment, because let's say you don't know what this fetishize means. Then connect this word critics to take them. Them means studio era movies. So reviewers, critics take these movies for aesthetic standard. Aesthetic standard. Let's say you don't know what aesthetic standard means. Even if you concentrate on the word standard, a particular standard, then you can make out what the author wants to say. Critics take these movies for standard. Yet critics take these movies for aesthetic standard. Yet suggests that they actually lack that aesthetic standard. And despite the fact that studio era movies lack aesthetic standard, critics take them for an aesthetic standard. This means that these movies lack aesthetic standards, and calling them movies of aesthetic standard is something that wrong thing that critics are doing. Okay, so this is enough to get the answer. Okay, now if you look at the options, there's only one option that talk about aesthetic standard, and that is the last option D. If you look at the last option D, there is a mention of aesthetic standard, right? The veneration means to venerate is to give great respect. The veneration of the styles and production methods of low budget movies of studio era as the ideal standard. So veneration of these movies as aesthetic ideal standard is misguided. Now who is misguiding this? Is misguided by critics, though it is not written. This is what we can understand here. So critics are misguiding by calling these movies of aesthetic standard. So just by concentrating on what is written here, okay, you can easily find out that the answer should be D options. Okay, the you can easily eliminate all other options. Nostalgia, okay, going back to your past good memories, and you become sentimental, emotional about your past good memories because you cannot leave them again. This particular nostalgia is not mentioned anywhere else. Rather than imitating the styles of studio era movies in a bid to achieve as artistic authenticity, filmmakers need to focus. Now, here there is a mention of filmmakers. However, there is yet after that. Yet suggests that there is a shift in the focus. So the focus is not filmmakers, the focus is critics, those who are reviewing the movies. So the focus is on reviewers rather than filmmakers. So the second option B is eliminated. See only the brilliance and resourcefulness of small minority of great filmmakers. Again, the focus comes back to filmmakers. The paragraph is not suggesting anything to filmmakers. The author knows that these films, most of the studio era movies, lack aesthetic standard, and though they lack aesthetic standard, critics call them movies of aesthetic standard. So the author is concerned about critics rather than the movies. The author is not concerned about the movies. The author is concerned about those who call these movies of aesthetic standard. So this is misguidance. Okay, this is misguidance done by critics, and therefore D option is the answer.